Domenech, and I'm here with Noelle Ellerson, and Noelle is part of our advocacy team, and Noelle, along with Bruce Hunter, for the last couple of months have done a great job in working with the Department of Education and the people up at the Hill in bringing this jobs bill through passage finally earlier this week. Tell us a little bit about what you guys went through.
We've been going through that and working on this for several months. We need to keep in mind that the push for an additional round of emergency education funds started way back at the end of last year, where the House proposed a bigger package, and that through its different iterations and different legislative vehicles turned into the $10 billion Educator Job Fund and the $16 billion for FMAP that we saw pass this week. This week's vote was actually the third time the House had voted on such a measure. The Senate took a little more pushing. It was a heavier lift in terms of advocacy efforts, but they both came around and came through and delivered for America's public schools in the last week, and that's where we are today.
That's great, but you know, I think it's important to know for our members that thanks to their response to the many surveys that, by the way, Noelle sent out, we were able to gather very valuable information. So right up to the last minute.
Right up to the last minute. The last stimulus, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act in February 2009, AASA had started surveying and messaging with members in December of 2008, and that ongoing series has really become a shining star for AASA in terms of delivering our members' point of view and feedback directly to Capitol Hill and to the administration, as well as getting AASA at the table. They really have, and by they I mean the administration, Capitol Hill, they clamor and turn to AASA surveys and member feedback for information. And actually last week, within 24 hours, AASA had delivered a quick, articulate message on the importance of the House coming back from recess early to take this vote. And that was something that AASA was uniquely able to deliver, and thanks only to our members' quick response.
Right. And by the way, we want to send thanks to Secretary Duncan.
Yes.
Because he did a great job in supporting this bill and making sure that it went all the way through. So thank you very much, Secretary Duncan.
Thank you. He made calls. He was advocating, pushing strong for it.
Absolutely. Now, Noelle, what the members want to know at this point is, when are they going to get the money?
When are we going to get the money? That is the number one question I've received. The bill was signed into law on Tuesday night, the same day the House passed it, and that means it is enacted. So the Secretary has committed and articulated that his department is able to start pushing money out to states within 2 weeks of receiving an approvable application. The application, a streamlined application, they plan to have that available online as early as next week. AASA will continue to monitor that and make it available on our website as soon as it's up and available. But the states will turn that in within 2 weeks of receiving an acceptable application. Money will flow to the states. From there, the question becomes, when will it go from the state level to the local level? A decision has to be made. This legislation allows states to decide whether they want to move the money to the local level through either their Title I formula or their state funding formula. That's a conversation you can all start at home with your states now. That way, by the time the money gets to the state level, the decision has already been made, and all you need to do is put the money into a formula and have that be the vehicle to get it out as soon as possible.
Now, how will the LEAs, how long will they have to spend the money or obligate the money?
This is a question, the other big question I get. Noelle, do we have to spend the money all in this school year? And the short answer is no. While it is the intent of the language and the money for it to go out in the school year, the department has said schools will have the traditional 27-month spend out for this. So you have until September of 2012 to spend and obligate this money.
And who's eligible to get the money?
This is something we're seeking further clarification on, because this language is so similar to the State Fiscal Stabilization Fund. We assume and think that if you were eligible under those, you should continue to be eligible. That said, depending on what formula your state chooses to move the money to the local level, that will indicate if you are eligible or not. So if you stand to receive money under your state Title I formula, and that is the formula they move, we anticipate you should receive funds. Likewise for if they choose the state formula. The one concern we have, and we're waiting clarification in a conference call this afternoon with the department, is that because this money is so closely targeted to saving jobs, what about those districts who made strong cuts to programs in an effort to save jobs? They didn't cut jobs. Will they be eligible to receive the funds? And we're hoping the case is yes. I'm going to ask that question and get an answer this afternoon for that specific nuance.
Well, that's great. Now, speaking of the stabilization dollars,
Yeah.
I think one of the concerns that a lot of our members have is that, as was the case with stabilization dollars, many of the states took the money and you know, the shell game. They used it to supplant rather than supplement.
Yeah.
What's going to happen here?
The good news is that the language in this bill is stronger around maintenance of effort and supplements of plan. That said, it's not as bulletproof as we would have hoped. One of our AASA surveys was the first one to really document the shell game, where states took federal money, put it in their education budget in place of their state effort of education, and freed up the state money to go elsewhere. We documented that shell game, and it was one of the biggest concerns that members have articulated to us. But the language isn't as bulletproof as we would like it to be. We're hoping that the enforcement of this somewhat stronger language really does hold governors and state legislatures accountable for making sure that every dollar of this $10 billion fund is in addition to state education effort.
Now, you mentioned Title I before. Supposing a state chooses to use the Title I formula, are then the rules and regulations of Title I going to apply?
No, this is one area where the bill is identical to the state fiscal stabilization fund. In distributing the money, Title I formula is simply a vehicle. The regulations and rules will not apply. You will not be bound to your Title I rules and compliance.
One of the major concerns that, and by the way, we very much appreciate what the House did in bringing the members back.
Yes.
And having the 5 weeks earlier than would have been the case. But even so, we know that with the time frame of the states having to apply for the money and the money getting, that the reality is that school is going to start before districts have seen a penny. Now, what is the situation in terms of districts going ahead and spending district dollars with the assurances that they will get reimbursement as the federal monies flow?
So this is a question about an issue of local supplanting, which the short answer is I've been told there's no expectation or language against local supplanting. And it comes down to the very timeline. Like you said, the House came back 5 weeks earlier, so that's 5 weeks to start planning. It doesn't catch everyone. Some people are starting school this week and next week, so there's no way the money will be to them in time. But this vote was pushed up in anticipation of the fact that they school administrators and school leaders would know that the money is coming and could start reversing some of those programmatic and personnel cuts in anticipation of the federal funds. I have asked and had initial answer that you could use your local dollars to shore up jobs right now in anticipation of the federal monies coming to fruition in a few months and then using that to backfill. I have heard other shorter answers that aren't as concise or favorable as that answer. I'm going to confirm that this afternoon as well. But the short answer is yes, you should be able to front the money with local dollars and then reimburse your budget with the federal dollars when they come in.
Now, I know you've been getting a lot of questions from our members that still need answers to. What are some of those questions?
Oh, there are a lot of questions that we want answers to. We will be putting up a full list of all member questions and answers, just like we did with the ARRA, to make that available to our members. But some of the remaining ones out there are, one is, if they use the Title I formula, which of the formulas are they going to use? The basic, the targeted, the EFIG, or the concentrated grant, two of which have a number weighting component, which is disadvantageous to rural schools. So I'm trying to get some clarification. I'm not sure if that would be something that comes from the federal level or the state level as to which Title I formula they use. Another one is, how are education service agencies treated under these funds? Are they eligible? Is that something that can be addressed in federal guidance saying, yes, ESA should be allowable in terms of distributing money to them? Or is that something that falls to the state definition? And that's just two. There are many, many. We will continually upgrade and update the questions as they come in.
Well, Noelle, thank you so much for sharing all that information, and thank you so much for the great job that you and Bruce did up in the Hill in ushering this bill through. For the members, you know, this is an example of your membership at work with AASA. Please continue to support us by continuing to be a member of AASA, encouraging your friends who are not members to join AASA. And be sure to register and attend our annual conference coming up this February in Denver. Thank you so much, and hope the money gets to you soon.